Hello everyone, today I'll be reviewing The China Syndrome. So The China Syndrome came out in 1979 and was directed by James Bridges, and this film stars Jack Lemmon, Jane Fonda and Michael Douglas. So Jack Lemmon, he plays a man who works at a nuclear power plant, and his job is quite difficult, and he finds that one day things start to go wrong in this power plant and it looks as though an accident is about to happen, because one of the meter readings, it looked like it was showing that the level was high but it was actually low because it got stuck, and a few things happen which seems like things are about to go wrong. Luckily an accident is avoided and things can go back to normal. Then we have Jane Fonda, who plays a news reporter, and Michael Douglas, who plays a cameraman, and their job is to film inside of this nuclear power plant, and they witness when this accident is about to take place. And they want to do a story on it, but it turns out that they're not really allowed to do a story on it, and it seems as though this power plant is trying to hide something. Jack Lemmon's character, again, he does a bit of digging and he finds out that ultimately this power plant is not really safe, and it needs some repairs and some parts of it need to be replaced, but the people running the place, they don't want to spend the money on that extra equipment and all the costs and all that extra effort and time needed to maintain the power plant. They're happy to just keep it running, even though it looked as though the core, it's possible that it could overheat. So Jack Lemmon's character, he wants to get the news out about this power plant not being safe, but the powers that be, they're trying to cover it up. There's a bit of a conspiracy, and he's trying to essentially get the word out to Jane Fonda and Michael Douglas's characters. And then we then see the story move forward with Jack Lemmon's character really struggling to get this news out. And yeah, I won't really spoil too much more, but generally the film goes in that sort of direction, with Jack Lemmon's character being at the centre trying to get this news out, and then Jane Fonda trying to cover the story of it without being noticed or being spotted by the authorities. So there's a bit of a conspiracy going on here. So this is one of those films that I went into pretty blindly, because I really did not know what it was about at all, and I didn't really know what the title meant, The China Syndrome. So for those who don't know what the China Syndrome is, which is probably most of you, it's a theoretical result of a nuclear meltdown where the reactor components essentially melt through the core into the earth, or theoretically through to China. Now obviously this is theoretical, so it probably wouldn't happen, but it's essentially called the China Syndrome. And this obviously links in with the plot of the film, with the idea of a nuclear meltdown possibly taking place. My favourite part of this film is definitely Jack Lemmon's performance. Jack Lemmon's one of those actors, been in so many great films, and although he's a bit older in this film than he is in many of his other films I've seen, he still delivers a fantastic performance, and he's really the character we follow the most through this film, and is a character who at the start he seems like is trying to cover something out, he's trying to cover something up, but then as we go through the story we see his character, he wants to get the truth out, he does want to do the right thing, but he starts to panic because everybody else around him is not believing him and is trying to get the story out, and we really want the best for his character, really feel for him as we go through the story, and I think his performance just is absolutely superb in this film, and yeah, right towards the scene at the very end of the film. I also think that Jane Fonda is fantastic in this film as well. She's one of those actresses who I think I've only seen in one or two other films, and I think this is definitely her best performance. And also Michael Douglas as the cameraman, great actor, although he really doesn't have quite as much to do in this film as the other leads. And I just like the fact that this film constantly keeps you intrigued, it keeps you wanting to know more, and I found, although this film, it might not be the most action-packed and exciting film, it's very tense, because you constantly feel as though something could be about to go wrong, especially when we're in this nuclear power plant, which looks absolutely fantastic. Obviously they weren't actually allowed to film inside a nuclear power plant for this film, but in terms of the set and everything, it all looks so fantastic, and just the way everything is designed really keeps us on our toes when watching this film. Now I suppose you could say that you know, whatever your feelings are towards nuclear power, whether you think nuclear power is a great thing or whether you think nuclear power is a terrible thing, yeah, you could say perhaps the makers of this film were trying to get a certain point across. However, I think it's best to just try and watch this as a film instead of trying to look too deep into it, because, you know, I think even if you're someone who really likes nuclear power, that I suppose in this film the idea is that the truth isn't being told and there is something that could go wrong, and, you know, there's a cover-up essentially, and, you know, Jane Fonda's character trying to do a news report on it, but then at the same time we have the authorities chasing after these people, which, as I said, really keeps us on our toes and watching this film. Makes it very exciting to watch indeed. Also, I think this film is incredibly well directed as well. Yeah, James Bridges, not one of those directors I was particularly familiar with. However, having watched this film, I want to check out more of his other works, because I can see that he really knows how to do, well, an excellent thriller, to be honest. And although this is the most exciting film, it does certainly keep us wanting to find out more. And this is one of those films I didn't find any bits particularly boring, if I'm honest. So overall, I wouldn't say this is one of my favourite films I've ever seen, but it was a nice surprise because I had no idea what this film was about going into it. And yeah, it turned out to be a really great film. So I'm going to give it a rating of 8 out of 10, simply because it works great as a thriller. From the acting perspective, the performances are all great, and I think it's definitely a film which most people can appreciate, and it is actually fairly easy to follow. And I do think that the ending scene is very good. It's absolutely superb, although I'm not going to spoil it. And I think even right from the start, just the scene where we're introduced to the characters, there's a scene about sort of 10 or 10-15 minutes into the film which really sets us up for the rest of the film. And it's fantastic when a film has a great opening sequence, and it just keeps you watching for the rest of it. So yeah, so there we go, guys. That is my view of The China Syndrome. I highly recommend that you check this one out. As I said, a fantastic film, and yeah, Jack Lemmon's performance, absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.